Well, we're live, everyone. I'm armed with my tissues. I've got a whole stack here. I've got a man cold. Now, you guys know what it is to get a man cold. Don't let the girls tell you that there's no such thing as a man cold, because boy, are they true. So I probably won't be on as long today because I think my voice will give up. But say hello in the chat anyway. I'd love to see what you're all saying. Let me just see who's here. So let's have a look. Dana's in here. We're going to talk about the A9 sensor. Oreo's also here. Jim is here as well. What else have we got? Unboxed text reviews here. A92 confirmed. Ooh. Jim's saying global sensor. Unboxed text review says global sensor, you mean? I'm just going to put my other glasses on. Hang on for a sec. I'll put my other glasses on. Oh, there we go. Unboxed text reviews, my birthday is mid-September, so if the A92 comes out, then maybe I can convince my wife to get one. I love it. A global shutter would be great. Dana says, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Dana says, agreed. I'm thinking the A7000. Text review says, way too big feature to put in a lower spec. How long have we been on anyway? I might just start the timer. Hang on a second. I'll just do it later. Dana says, making a global shutter on a smaller sensor would likely be easier. David's trying to send Kerry on a 2-hour errand in case he gets another package to unbox. I know. Poor Kerry. Is your heat working today? Yes, it is. I haven't got my hat on today. Eli said he got his A7R3. That's fantastic. Brittany's waving. Brittany, now you would know all about the man flu. I mean, you wouldn't know about it, but you would know how us males feel when we get the man flu. There's just nothing worse. Poor Kerry, she's beside herself. She just does not know what to do with me. John saying hi from the UK. Unboxed text says, no hat for David, must be warm in there. Yeah, I've got the heater on today. I had a couple of things burnt on my head though, so if you're wondering what these things are that are on my head, I've had skin, they're not skin cancers, but they're just, they could be like pre-skin cancers, so they burn them off with dry ice. So that's what they are if you're wondering what those are. Gathis said, hello David, best show on YouTube. Thank you, Gathis. Nivek said, feel better? No, I feel a bit worse. I don't feel really that sick, but I've got a blocked up nose and I can't sleep because the problem is I breathe through my nose and then I'm breathing through my mouth and then I get a dry mouth. Oh. But you know how the man flu is, guys. You know all about it. Brittany's laughing because Brittany knows how the man flu is. So I've got some Anticol ready to go. So here we are with the Anticol. I've got my tissues lined up. So if my voice does go, we're going to have to stop. I don't think it'll be as long as the usual show though, guys, because I don't think my voice will last an hour and a half. So there we go. What did Jim say? Jim said, just bought a used 100 to 400 GM today for 1,750. That's fantastic, Jim. Wow, that's really good. I'll forgo the 100 to 600. Well, you can get the adapter, remember. Get the 2x adapter or the 1.4x adapter is probably better. And then that's a great price for that lens. I really enjoyed using that when I used it. Gathis said, currently sick as well. Get well soon. Yeah, Gathis, you would know all about this man stuff that we cop. Women have to understand what we go through, and I don't think they understand it. Now, probably a bit of retail therapy would help. And I probably should have made, Kerry say, look, I would feel a little bit better if I can go to the camera store. That might make me feel a little bit better. They've got to have understanding, guys. This is the thing. Andrea says A7S3 is coming. I don't know when that's coming. Anyway, let's start because I'm going to go through some stories with you guys because, like I said, I don't know how long my voice will be here. So let's get stuck into it all. Love it if you could give me a thumbs up too, guys. That would be fantastic. It just lets everyone else know we're live. In fact, before we do that, let me just put in here. I'm just going to put it in the videography school that we are live. Just so that people know. Now, if you don't want to watch this later on, you can just go to the timeline down below and check out the stories, because I'll put that in there as well. Let me just go videography school. And I'll just put in there live on YouTube. I'll just show you this while I'm doing it so you can see what's going on here. Let me just switch. Which one's that one? I don't know why that's done. Oh, it's down here actually. Let me just switch to that one. So this is the photography videography school. I'm just going to put live on YouTube. Now, YouTube. Now. And let me just post that. It's a bit slower today, I've noticed. My whole internet has been a bit down. If you want to join us on the photography videography school, please do. We've got fantastic stuff that happens on here. Really good stuff, a lot of video. Peter's sharing a lot of stuff on there too. I asked people to share where they live, which is fantastic. I also showed where I live. We've got some really good stuff in there. So it's for videographers and for still shooters like I am. Well, I do a bit of both, but please join us on there. It is the photography videography school. You'll notice up there that you have to use that and symbol, not the other and symbol. So please join us there. I noticed now, on a side note, and this is where you have to be very careful, I just wanted to talk to everyone about this because it's a bit weird before we start the show. I got a note the other day on Facebook to say that I had been blocked from posting to other groups. It finishes today, I think, at 11:45, so fairly soon, in another hour. Now, I don't know why, because I never post anything inappropriate, never do anything like that, because I'm always very careful about what I share. But for some reason, they put me in timeout for a week. And I don't know why. And I appealed it and said, well, what have I done wrong? And they never get back to you. This is the problem. There's no one you can talk to or anything like that. So they've timed me out from posting in other news groups. I can post, obviously, in the photography videography school because that's my page. And I can also post on my Osler Images page and the David Osler page. But I can't post anywhere else. And it's been lifted today sometime about 11 o'clock. But I've got no idea. And this is the problem with places like Facebook, because you're totally at the whim of what they want to do to you, and it's really bad. So I don't know. I mean, I would have thought that you'd have to have a reason that they could block you. And like I said, I never post political stuff. I don't post anything sexual. I don't post anything that's bad like that. So I've got no idea what on earth they could have found that it was a problem. So has anyone else had that happen? I'd just be curious to know. Let me know in the comments down below. Or even in the live chat. I know a couple of you are saying Sony haters. That's funny. So just before we go live to the stories, let's just see what people are saying. Oh, that's interesting, Oreo. I heard stories of people healed by purchases of the Sigma 105. See, this is the thing. This is where women have to understand that retail therapy for men never works unless you go into a camera store. I mean, let's face it. Or a computer store probably would help me as well. But Canon haters unbox said time. You put you in time. And I don't know why. I've got no idea why I was banned, because I've done nothing wrong. And this is the thing. I cannot see what I could have been banned about. I've got no idea. Terry said, David, can you test the FE to Z mounter? I'm going to talk about that in a minute, Terry. I don't know whether I'll be able to get my hand on one, though, but I would like to test it if I could. You are probably trashing Canon again. It happens to most admins, laugh out loud. I know, I've got no idea, Brett. I don't know what on earth they've done it for. All right, let's get started anyway. Let me just bring up the Osler Images logo. I'll mention it again, that thing on my head, because people are going to say I've got something. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our usual Friday show. I know it's Thursday for everyone else, but I always say Friday because it is here. I have got an awful cold, so if I do start sneezing and blowing my nose, look, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do about it because I've got a man cold, as we've discussed earlier, and everyone knows how bad man colds are. And there is a couple of girls in the thing, and they will vouch for it because, you know, we have to put up with just terrible sicknesses that women just can't understand. Also, I've had, if anyone, don't panic about these marks on my head, guys. I've had some dry ice put on my head because every time I come up with these, someone says, oh, David, are you all right? Have you got a problem with this skin? No, I get typical problem in Australia. Our sun is very powerful here, and I get sunspots that they burn off before they go cancerous. So I do get them burnt off. So I've got a couple on my head. So occasionally you'll see me with these things. My daughter's a nurse, and she does them for me. So yeah, that's that. So that's what that is. So don't panic when you see that. If you don't want to watch the whole show, it's not going to be as long today, I don't think, because I don't think my voice will last an hour and a half. Check down below because I will put a timeline down for all of you so you can skip to the story that you're interested in. So that's basically all there is there. I've just have a discussion about I was blocked for some reason on Facebook. I'd love to know if that's happened to you. I've got no idea why they put me in timeout, but they stopped me from commenting and posting for a week on any other site. So let me know if you've seen that before. David, you was branded. I love it. It's Kerry's birthday today too, guys. So she's not here, she's at work. It's Kerry's birthday today. Mine's next week, so I'm so excited. Mine's next, I think it's Friday. I'm 60 years old next week. Woohoo! It's a big one for me next week. Party time. That is an excuse to go to the camera shop. Kerry, if you're listening, it's an excuse to walk into the camera shop and get whatever I want. All right, guys. Love it if you can give me a thumbs up. Let's get started anyway in today's show. So I wanted to talk about this first because I know I went over this last week, but it's been confirmed again this morning that there is a new camera that has been registered, and it's this WW716189 has been registered. Now, we don't know whether this is going to be an A7S III or an A7000 or even an A9 II, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute with the A9 II rumours that are going out. So we'll sort of elaborate on that as well. But it's interesting that there's definitely something coming. And they're also saying it's equipped with Wi-Fi, this 2.4 and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So it's certainly going to have some, you know, Wi-Fi connectivity or something like that. So it's going to be interesting. We don't know what it is yet, but it's still pretty exciting. I don't think I think it's going to be more of a high-end camera due to I think that's what we really are after. I don't think it'll be an RXO camera or anything like that. I think it's going to be a better camera than that. But to continue on that, let's just go to this next story because it may tie in with this, and this is what we've got to look at. The Nikon president has said they're going to launch a mirrorless D5 to compete against the Sony A9. So we probably know that now is going to be true. And it's Nikon has said they've reported on that, and it said this camera would directly compete against the Sony A9. There is no info about when this will be launched. If Nikon wants to be ready for 2020, it would have to be launched in the autumn, the US, this year. And then maybe there's one more reason why Sony is planning to launch the A9 II in autumn too. But what they're saying here on Sony Alpha Rumors is the A9 II is likely September, and it's going to be a revolution. That's what they've heard anyway. They're saying, we were told that the new sensor is a major step forward, and I'm particularly sure it will not use the revolutionary sensor. They're talking about the Nikon camera. So that's interesting. So let's discuss this before I open it up to chat. So there's a couple of options here. Now, we haven't even got firmware version 6 yet for the A9. So that's an interesting thing that you still have to consider. So we're still waiting on getting that. Now, I believe from the rumors that I've been hearing, it's coming out this month. So that's really exciting. I can't wait to get that, to get the intervalometer and also the animal IAF into the Sony A9 is a gain. And they'll do other fixes as well. So that's also going to be fantastic. I can't wait to, see what that does. So that's one thing you've got to consider yet. So if Sony are doing that, is there going to be another A9? But let's not discuss that at this stage because I'm not sure. But looking at the rumors that are around where they're saying they're going to have a camera that's going to compete with the Sony A9, the only sensor that is available that can do that is the Sony A9 sensor. Now, that's a fact. There is no other sensor out there that can compete with the Sony A9. So, what I think is going to happen here now, I was a bit, we weren't going to get an A9 II, but we may now. We may not, but we may. This is what I think is going to happen. I think Sony are going to give Nikon the Sony A9 sensor. You think about it, we've had that for 3 years now. I think it's 3 years. So Sony have had that long enough and they haven't given that sensor to anyone else. So they probably are going now to license that to Nikon. Now there's no way that they will give the new sensor, the A9 II sensor, to Nikon. It'll be like what we've got now with the Nikon, with the D9. That has been solely Sony's flagship sensor. And I think you're going to find it's going to be the same thing with the new A9 II. We're not going to get that sensor. We'll only get it in the A9 II. Now, so that's what I think may happen now. So Sony have now going to license, and it makes sense. Remember, Sony do want to make money from their sensor division as well. So it makes sense that they've given that to Nikon for their D5. But if that's the case, if then Sony bring out an A9 II with this revolutionary sensor, and I think that's probably what's going to happen. I noticed someone here also said it. I'll go through the chat again in a minute, but I still wouldn't be surprised if Sony bring out a global shutter on the A9 II. If it's going to be revolutionary, what can it be apart from that? And I'd love you to sort of say on this as well. What could we have that's revolutionary in the sensor apart from a global shutter? I don't know what it could be, and that's the thing. I know Sony have been working on global shutters. So I think it's probably due, and I think that may be the thing that happens with the A9. But it's also interesting because the Sony a7S III has also gone quiet. There's been very little rumours on that as well. So, are they waiting on the global shutter for that? Are they trying to stop heating in that camera and things like that? So that's another interesting thing. We haven't heard anything lately about the A7000 either. So what's going on in regard to that as well? The A9 makes sense because of the Olympics that's coming up. So it does make sense that that's a camera that they're going to upgrade fairly soon, especially if they're giving that A9 sensor to Nikon. There's no way they'll give that to Nikon if they're not going to have a upgraded processor for their own A9, because they want the A9 to be the best camera that's out there. So if they give the A9 II to Nikon, then they release this new sensor like a global shutter for the Sony A9, which then would eliminate any rolling shutter or anything like that. It sort of makes sense, but it's going to have to happen fairly soon. Like I said, probably autumn sometime this year. But it still doesn't answer what's happening with the A7S III. It still doesn't answer what's happening with the A7000. Remember, if you're dealing with video side of things, Sony is still well behind. So we've got to have that answered. Sony have to answer that sooner or later. You've got Fuji now that are kicking goals with their video. Their new medium format apparently is very good, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that at the end. But the Fuji medium format is very good. You've got Nikon that's very good with their video side of things. So Sony have to answer that, and they do have to bring out either an A7000 or an A7S III or both of those cameras. So let's have a quick chat about it, because I'd be curious to know what you guys think about this. Do you think Nikon will be giving the sensor to Nikon, the current A9 sensor? And if you're not in the live chat now, please leave it in the comment box down below, because I'd be really curious to know what you guys have to say about that. G'day, Gerald. How are you? Jim's... he just put that down. Brett said, or C2 type port. Yeah, I mean, it will be interesting to see what ports they put in it, that's for sure. Hope they fix my A9. What's wrong with your A9, Casper? Oh, yeah, that's right. You were having issues, weren't you? You still haven't solved that problem. Terry said Facebook is ran by San Francisco communists. Banning people is what they do. I don't know why they put me on timeout. I've got no idea. John said, I think Sony will sell off the sensor division. Now, that's another thing. Thanks, John, for bringing that up. There are big rumours going around that there's rumblings that they want to completely isolate or get rid of the sensor division and put it as a complete... I know it's as marketed as a separate company, but they want to do something else with it to make it more further apart. And I think that probably is to do with protecting the company in case if camera sales go bad. Remember, the sensor division is the biggest money earner that Sony have. And if it was run as a completely separate company away from Sony, then Sony probably couldn't do what they've done with the A9 because anyone will be able to license that sensor. And I hope that doesn't happen. I really do. But there's rumblings apparently from the investors talking about that. There was a discussion about that on the photography videography school this morning. So it was talking about shareholders were asking for the companies to be sold and separated. So that's another thing. I hope that doesn't happen. John said, I think Sony will sell off the sensor division because of a disgruntled shareholder, then Nikon get the A9 sensor, my prediction. Unboxed Text Review said, Sony keep Nikon relevant. Wow, good on Sony. David said, were you able to get your Sony accommodation on... Oh, that's Casper. Michael said, Nikon just sold their rights to survive. They sold their soul over a better sensor. They'll pay for it, that's for sure. And remember, I suppose the thing is now, Sony's in a win-win situation if they do give this to Nikon because they'll make money on that. With every camera that Nikon sells, they're going to make big money because that's not a cheap sensor. Oops. Where were we? Oh, I hate it when it does that. Sometimes it just jumps down. Gathers said, what exactly is a global shutter? I've done a discussion on that before, Gathers. If you search my YouTube, you'll find it. I've done a whole video on it. If you search for global shutter David Osler on YouTube, you'll find it. It's too much to discuss here. Casper said, nope, got firmware glitch, and said, okay, so you have got a glitch. It was Dana, that's right. Thanks, Dana. It was Dana that mentioned about the shareholders this morning in the photography videography school. I apologise for my stuffy nose, guys. It's all blocked up. Dana said Sony could use an RGBW sensor. There was rumours about that going on. It seems to have disappeared a little bit, though. There's more talk about global shutters than that RGBW sensor, though. Brett said A7S3 and A92 global shutter. Wouldn't that be fantastic, Brett? That would be amazing. Terry said, there are no more revolutionary sensors. We have hit the wall. Development is slow and steady. Gerald said, I think we may get somewhat larger Sony body for the A9 too. And I think so too. I think they're going to have to do that due to heat, I think. And that's going to be one of the issues. So I think the days of having the really small body, Sony are going to have to bite the bullet and say we may have to go for a bigger body. All the cameras that can produce that, like the Panasonics, etc., have these larger bodies where the heat can get out. So I think they probably are going to have to do something. And the new A7 sensor, 7000 sensor will make use of the current A7 body for better IBIS and more room for 4K 60 heating as well. Now, before I forget, because I never did this as a story, I just wanted to mention, because Gerald, like I said, I don't want to talk too long today because I don't think my voice will last, but Gerald also, there was a big discussion in the photography videography school about the focusing. It was actually Gilbert mentioned that he was having real problems with IAF with his, I think it was Samyang lenses. They were third-party lenses that they were having issues with. But another couple, I think it might have been Langston or someone, was also talking about a native lens problem as well. But it seems to be more that we've had issues with the autofocus from the Sony A7 III. I haven't heard from the A9, although Oreo said he had issues with the A9 with IAF. I think what's happened here is that due to the firmware updates that have come out, the firmware on the lenses needs to be adjusted. They need to be updated. And that's the issue. Sometimes when they release firmware, and Gerald contacted a Sony rep, and he said this. He said, look, Sony, try to keep the firmwares from breaking the firmware of the lenses, basically. They try to do that, but sometimes it's not possible. So I think what's happened here with certain Samyang lenses, etc., and I think some have said the Tamron 28-75 has had issues. I haven't noticed it though, so that's what's a bit weird about it. But I think what you might find is that they have updated firmware due to you've got the versions, these latest versions of the firmware that have just come out, like 5 for the Sony A9 and version 3 for the Sony A7 III and the A7R III. Unfortunately, it's broken the lenses sometimes. When I say broken it, it's broken that IAF. That's what seems to have been affected by it. So let me know in the comment box. I'd love to know in the live chat whether any of you've noticed that. I haven't noticed it personally, so I can only talk about my personal experience using the Tamron, because that's the... I know I've got the Sigma 16, which I'm using now, but I haven't noticed any autofocus problems with the IAF with the lenses that I'm using. Have you noticed that? Let us know in the chat down below as well, if you're not watching this live. Have you noticed any issues since you've updated the firmware on the A9 or the A7 III or the A7R III? I'd be really curious to know, because Gilbert was having real issues. I told him to reset his camera to see if that solved that problem and start from scratch, and he's done that, but he hasn't reported yet about what happened with it. So let us know if you have had that anyway, because I'd be really curious to know. Let's keep going down in the chat. I just wanted to mention that because I promised Gilbert that I'd bring that up. Gerald, I mean. Jim said, global shutter is a simultaneous scan of the sensor. Yeah, and the thing is, it gives you a real advantage if you're using flash, and also you don't get rolling shutter, which means you're not going to get that movement problem anymore, where things bend and stuff like that. But like if you look at the new Hasselblad camera that's just come out, you can use flash natively at 1/2000th of a second. With the Sonys, you're limited to 1/250th of a second. So that's massive. If you're trying to overpower the sun or something like that, you can go up to 1/2000th of a second without using high-speed sync. It would be amazing. I'm so excited about having that, the ability to do that, because then your flashes don't lose power. This is the interesting thing, because when you use high-speed sync, your flash strobes, it actually pulses, and you lose about, I can't remember, you lose like about 1/4 of your power. It's a lot. It is an incredible amount. So if you don't lose that power, you'd easily be able to overpower the sun at 1/2000th of a second with probably, a AD200. It'll be fantastic. Let's keep going anyway. Where were we? Eric said, all those cameras have Sony sensors as well as the new Hasselblad. Yes, they do. Like, Sony is killing it with sensors, that's for sure. That's why it's only a matter of time before we get a 100 megapixel A7R4. It's going to happen for sure. Mark's here. G'day, Mark. Manuel. Gerald said, yes, I think it's long enough for Sony to have it exclusively with the A9 sensor. Sony makes money from Nikon, a long-time partnership, and if blocking Canon from getting the sensor, yep. Remember, Sony have had a really good working relationship with Nikon, so it does make sense. And I think, you're probably going to find it's going to happen. Jim said, thumbs up, please. Yeah, thanks. That'd be great if everyone could do that. Bad Habit said, well, if they do give Nikon the sensor, then there must be something revolutionary with the new A9 sensor, more megapixels and such. I'm a bit hesitant to think it would be more megapixels, though. Because remember, the A9 is going to be a sports sensor, so I don't know, it's going to have to be an amazing processor to push more megapixels through at 20 frames per second. It might be possible. We'll have to wait and see, but it's going to be interesting, that's for sure. But I don't think more megapixels really is revolutionary. That to me doesn't seem like it's revolutionary. Global shutter is, but that's not. Mark said the A9 Mark II could be a hybrid S with much higher ISO video, although I think the camera body will be larger. I mean, do you think that's a possibility? Is there a possibility that the A9 II could be the A9S built in? Would they bring out one camera to do both? I don't know if that would happen, but it certainly is a possibility. It's interesting because I don't know how long they can hold back the video features on the A9. It doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't make sense to me that I can't shoot log on this camera. There's no reason why you can't do that. That is just a deliberate ploy by Sony to not let you have it in the A9. So, you know, are they going to get to the stage where they think, well, we're just going to bring out this amazing camera that does fantastic video and stills at the same time? It's a possibility. I'm not sure we'd get that, though. Unbox says, D5 with A9 sensor seems like the most logical thing to happen. Yeah, I think that's probably what's going to happen. Like I said, if Nikon have said that, it's the only possible thing they could do because no one else makes a sensor like the A9. It's the only solution that could be out there. Gerald said Sony will not sell off their sensor division just because a USA activist trader sees big money. The hedge fund share is less than 5% of Sony's growth. Terry said if they did, which they don't, they would be forced to sell it to Nikon and Nikon will go elsewhere and Sony loses big time in the long run. Cody saying hi. G'day, Cody. Michael said, I'm with Basement Ken, the baby angry photographer, Fuji. I love it. Tazam said, no problem with my Tamron 28-75. Yeah, I haven't either. I've used it a lot lately and I haven't seen any issues at all. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. Bad Habit said, I have the A7 III and have issues with IAF when focusing using AF on only. I still have IAF on the AEL and it works fine there. Oreo said, my A9 problem was with the face recognition more than IAF. Has it been solved now, Oreo? Have you still got problems with that? Because it's curious because I'm wondering why. Because I'm just astounded by how well face detect and IAF works with my A9 with the lenses that I use. And it's strange that you're saying you have issues and I can't understand why. Brett said, I had an attendee was using her A9 in my studio workshop, was missing focus on IAF sometimes when my A7 III was making every shot. What lens was she using, Brett? Let us know that because I'd be curious to know. Bad Habit said this was with native lenses. Oh, interesting. Oreo said, especially face recognition from a distance. Yeah, I haven't noticed that at all. And it might be that if you keep getting that, Oreo, I'd be getting the camera checked by Pro Support or something because it shouldn't do that and there's something wrong. Nivak said 3.1 firmware on the A7R III with the Tamron 28-75 has been fine for me. Firmware is a complex software and bugs it can sometimes only show up under specific cases, yeah. And that's true, it can. It can be just as simple as something selected somewhere that can cause a bug. That's why I often say you're better off to reset your camera and start from scratch. Rui said, no problems with my A7 III on my Tamron 28-75. See, a lot are saying there's no issues. And this is why it must be a bug that's out there. G'day, Steve. How are you? Cody says, my IBIS on my A7 III isn't working on the 17-200 GM and the 70-200G since firmware 3.01 firmware update, but it's working with the 100-400 GM. No, I haven't heard of that at all. Try resetting your camera, Cody, and see if that fixes it, and then start from scratch. It might fix it. Nivak said there is also note there is a newer Tamron lens firmware than the video focus fix from last year. Yeah, there was a Tamron update as well. I did update that, so you know, let us know if you have got the latest firmware. I'm certainly running the latest firmware. I haven't seen any issues at all. Eric said, since updating my A7 III to version 3, I think the AF is better than ever. Gene says, no issues so far with the A7R III and the Tamron 28-75. with the latest firmware. Just used it in low light concert event. See, that's what I keep hearing. I keep hearing a lot of people saying that the Tamron 28-75 doesn't focus well in low light. Well, I've found that the complete opposite. Because I've been using it in dance concerts where the lighting is quite extreme sometimes, receptions, for weddings. And, you know, and I've found it beautiful. Like, it works amazing. It's not as fast as my 55, because nothing is, but, you know, or the 135, but it is super fast, and I certainly haven't put it on and thought it's slow. Whether there's variations in the lens or something, I'm not sure, but I certainly have not found it to be slow at all. Eric said, Hasselblad has a unique shutter that's separate from the camera body. Yeah, we'll look at that later, but I know it is a global shutter. Oh, no, it's a leaf shutter, isn't it? That's a leaf shutter, I believe. Yeah, I think that might be another thing. I always get confused. I think the Hasselblad is a leaf shutter. James said, hey, David, does the Sony A6400 work with the Profoto A1X on the camera? I think I tried it, James, and it did. I can't test it because it's up here. I'll see if I can do it later and test it, but I think it did work. I'm pretty sure. But I can't test it now because it's up there. I know it's not... the Profoto A1X is not listed as a supported flash, though, so it may not. Gene said... Brett said, you lose half the power. Thanks, Brett. Yeah, it's a massive loss. It is a massive loss. So if you can get over that HSS... Now, someone in the chat may be able to remind me about it. I'm pretty sure global shutter works the same as a leaf shutter in the fact that you don't... you can use that 2000 for your shutter speed. Is that correct? Someone might be able to tell me in the chat. I may be getting confused because I used to use Hasselblads years ago. And there was no issue with because that was a leaf shutter. There was no issue with the flash sync speed. Someone that's knowledgeable about it might be able to also say if it's the same with the other shutter. Oh, that'll be a delivery, guys. Can you talk amongst yourselves for a second? Hang on. Okay, let's see what it is. Something from SmallRig, I think. Yep. Oh, this is cool. I'll show you what this is. Let me see if I can open it. I need a knife. I hate these things because they're that hard to get out. Let me just go... Ugh. I've got this little tool. I'll show you what this is. So, because I've got so many cages that I'm using all the time, and you've always got little Allen key things that you've got to plug in, and they all come with different size ones. So I bought this little tool that comes out, and what it is, so it comes in this nice little patch. Now I've paid for this, so I didn't get, SmallRig didn't send me this, so I've actually paid for this one. Let me just bring this over for a second. So what this is is it comes in, it's a little, you know, like one of these adapters that you can get out. Now, inside it, you've got every single sort of mount or Allen key that you would use. So it comes with a number of different ones that you can get. So I bought this because I get sick and tired of, where are they all? I get sick and tired of having multiple ones of all these Allen keys everywhere that you can, you know, you've got to keep using. So I wanted to get one that I can just put into my camera case and then I can get stuff off instantly. And you can also put screws into here so you can have spare screws and stuff like that. So yeah, I got that. I thought it was nice. It's a nice metal it's made. It's got a little SmallRig thing on it, little logo, but yeah, brilliant. Love it. So that's what that is. All right, so let's go back to the chat. Sorry about that, but if I miss it, it goes to the post office and then I take ages. The Hasselblad does have a leaf shutter, Mike. I'm pretty sure it's leaf. Yeah. Where were we up to? Gene said Sony might be innovating on the processor as well so they can stick the same camera and body sizes. Pixo has said his A7R3 and the Tamron are not working. Well, they're not working. What, not working at all? Peter said, I don't see the issue breaking the sensor wing away. They will still make the sensor for their own cameras. Nikon designed their own. They design it, but they're made by Sony. That's the difference. Let me just scroll down a bit, otherwise we'll be here forever. Oreo said, oh, your anti-flu from B&H Photo has arrived, I guess. I had my flu vaccination about a week and a half ago. Bad habit, just got the 200 to 600 in the mail. I wish. Michael said that would be Facebook with a summons. I love it. David said he wasn't interested in the 200 to 600, but he usually says that and then buys it. Yeah, look, if I bought that 200 to 600, it would be complete gas. I'm going to talk about it in a minute, actually. It looks lovely, but I just don't know how often I'd use it. It would have to be I would have to get other things before I got that. There is the doorbell, 600 GM for sure. I love it. 21 AUD. Carl says it's the Facebook police. Merv is saying he's watching from Instagram. Kyle says David's deliveries are the high point of his videos, like Mr. I know, I love it. The problem is I must do a video one day, but it's that my studio is completely separate to my house, so I've built it in the back, so I have to run right through. But the bell comes into here. I have to know when someone's at the door. I really should put a camera out there, so I have to run out to the front because if I miss it, they don't leave it and it goes to the post office, and then you've got to leave it till the next day. And I get that excited that it drives me nuts and I don't sleep. I mean, it's only simple, but I really love that. What do I do with that little gadget? I'll put it down somewhere. I'll be playing with that now. Oh, it's in there. That is really cool, though. I really love that. If you use a lot of SmallRig stuff, that's great. Unscheduled package delivery, I love it. Triple M said... oh, that was further down. Let me go. Brett said, David, I said global shutter would mean speed throughout without the shutter. Yeah, so it shouldn't affect. You're right, Brett. A global shutter still, you should be able to use any speed, shouldn't you? With the flash, there's no sync speed. I'm pretty sure that's correct. The same as a leaf shutter. I think a leaf shutter is limited, I think, to 2,000th of a second. People in the chat may be able to let me know if I'm wrong on that, but I think the leaf shutter is sort of limited to that 1/2000th. That's leaf shutter. Global shutter, I don't think there's any limit at all. Was trying to, but on his blog he essentially said he'd be using his fast prime telephotos. I'm not sure what's that was. Mark said a great tool, but I would use those Benro ones that come with their tripods. You can clip them onto your bag. Oh, okay. I think you can clip that too. Can you? No. Oh, I suppose through there you could clip it. Oh, no, you could clip it through there, I suppose. What else? Carl says, David must have $1 million. He is always buying things. I wish I had millions of dollars. I certainly haven't. If you don't have a pre-order in soon, you decide you want it, that's the 200. Yes, you will. Look, if you want the 200 to 600, you will have to put a pre-order in. That's for sure. David Johnson said, David, do you know if you can fit your Moza Air 2 in your new Vanguard VO Select 49? I'd have to try it. You would be able to unscrew it. I've just been asked too to review is it a Fayer? I'll tell you which one it is, because it looks really nice, and I've been asked to review it, and they're going to send me one. So I am excited about trying it. Let me just see if I can find it, and I'll tell you which model it is, just to see if any of you have used it before. It is... no. I think it's I think it's pronounced as Fayo or something like that, but it's a gimbal. I'm just trying to see if I've got it listed down here. Because they asked me the other day. Oh, here it is. I'll show you which one it is that they're going to get me to review. Let me just open up Safari for a second. So it's actually this one. So let me come up to here and I'll show you which one it is. File, new window. So it's this. So they're going to send me this. Now, it'll be interesting to see if any of you guys have heard of this brand or used it, but it looked really good. I looked at a couple of reviews on YouTube, and it looked really nice. So they said, would I be willing to review it? And I thought, well, yeah, because I'm a bit of a gimbal whore. I love it. I've got so many gimbals, and I'm really curious to see how this compares to the Moza Aircross 2. So I'll let you know. It's on special at the moment. It's $299 from $379. But they're going to mail it to me. I'm not sure how soon it'll come out to me, but I'm really excited about trying a completely new brand. So I'll let you stay tuned because I'll give it a good review and let you know what I think. So that's coming. I'll only ever review things that I think I'm going to be interested in, and gimbals always interest me because I really do like them. So I don't know whether the Moza Air 2 I think would fit in, but you may have to take the handle off. Usually I'll stick it into the laptop compartment, David. That's where I'll often put them, but it will stick out a little bit. But the Moza Air 2, yeah, you'd have to probably take the handle off, I would say. It won't fit in. If you had that. No, it's too big. That's a massive gimbal. That's this one. Here. That's what you can see right here. Let me just switch screens. That's this one. And I have to say, I've been using this handle, and this is the best thing. Well, I didn't buy it because SmallRig sent it to me, but I would have bought it. This is the best thing I've ever used. It's fantastic. I just have to tighten it up. But to get that handle, and then you can use it when it's down low. But yeah, it wouldn't fit in like this though. So no, and the handle doesn't come off. So I've just realised what gimbal it was you're talking about. So David, no, I don't think it will fit in. I think if you better turn that around. It would stick into the laptop side. But the good thing is with the Air 2 is the attachment where you stick your camera onto the top, it pulls out and then it stays balanced. So because it's got the grip there, you just take it out and then you can put it back in and it's balanced again. So I don't leave the camera on the gimbal. With the Aircross 2, you can't do that because every time you take the camera off, you then have to rebalance it. And I hate that part about that. That's the only thing I do hate about the Aircross. With the Air 2, I don't have to do that because it has that lockability on there where it's locked in. You can take the camera off with the mount and then just put it back in and it's automatically balanced. So I put that into the laptop part and then I'll just grab the camera out of the case and put it in. Let's keep going down. Brett said it was a 90 macro. Oh, okay, yeah. Well, the 90 macro is a little bit slow anyway, but it still should find a face detection though. That's interesting. Thanks, Brett. So the leaf shutter is almost a shutter in a lens, not in a body. You're going to have to, it's better to review it, Google it, actually, Peter, because it's a bit complex. I would think in the global shutter there would be some sort of limit, and that's what we have to, I must do some research. I don't think there is. But, I mean, you'd be limited by the 1/8000, which is the maximum that the Sony can go. But in theory, and this is what I have to research myself as well, in theory, if you have a global shutter, you should be able to use electronic shutter. That's correct, isn't it? Or am I thinking wrong? Let me know in the chat. I think that should work. Dana said a global shutter is limited by the speed of data can be read from the sensor. Yeah. What else? That's about it. Eric said, I was going to get the Fiotech A2000 gimbal, but I bought the Xeon Crane 2 instead. I kind of wish I got the Fiotech though. Their dual handle system is much better. Yeah, I'm not sure if they're going to send me the dual handle system though, Eric. They may just send me the gimbal. I don't know, but I could always get that later on, I suppose. I'm just curious to try it. Like, I'd really love to give it a go. What's that? What's that Gilbert shared? Something on Sony Alpha Rumors. Is there something new posted? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's there. That's just a review of that. That's about it. All right, let's go to the next story, guys, because it's just talking about the Sony. The first reviews are really coming out. I suppose they're unbiased reviews about the 200 to 600 millimeter. It looks like it's a really fantastic lens looking at these reviews. Really nice, actually, and this is a great review. You get an idea of the size of this lens. Plus, he's got some great samples. That's showing it as against the 150 to 600. That's the Sigma lens. It's a much nicer design, the Sony, though, isn't it? Much nicer design. I suppose it's a much more modern lens, and it's designed for mirrorless, so that's one real big advantage with the 200 to 600. And that's, I suppose, against the 100 to 400. Yeah, there's a big difference, isn't there, between the 100 to 400, that's for sure. And I suppose that's the 2.8 version. That's the 400, yep, GM. So there's some nice stuff. Then he talks about build quality and stuff, and he asks, when you read it, he says, well, look, it's definitely not a GM lens, but it's very good quality. He says the only issue he found was that it doesn't focus very quickly with things moving towards it. That's because it's not a GM lens and it doesn't have the focusing ability, excuse me, I'm losing my voice, that the GM ones have. But you have to expect that with the money that you're paying. And then he shows some samples, like his results were good, like his conclusion is very good. And then he's got some lovely images that he's captured there. If you're into birding and wildlife and stuff like that, it's a really great lens. My suggestion to you is definitely, if you're thinking about purchasing this lens, you better put it on pre-order because you're certainly going to have to wait a long time if you don't put it on pre-order, because it's going to be not available for a long time. I think Sony have done a really good thing here because they've priced that lens. I mean, I know $2,000 is a lot of money, but it's not for what you're getting, and that's the thing you've got to understand. This is the first lens that's been designed of its type that's built for mirrorless in that focal range. I know it's variable, but it's still usable in daylight. You wouldn't want to use this probably in dark conditions, though. That's where you'd need the other lenses that are there. But if you're dealing with good lighting and stuff like that, it's going to be amazing. It's $2,000. It's built for mirrorless. You're going to get the 20 frames per second, which is also fantastic if you're shooting birding or wildlife and things like that, or sports during the day. So it's going to be a great lens. For the price they're asking, I was surprised. I thought it would have been $1,000 more than that. So it did surprise me with the pricing that they came in at with that lens. And I think Sony have done an amazing job, and you've got to commend Sony for what they've done there. Like I said, it's not really a lens that interests me because I don't really use that or do that type of shooting. It doesn't mean I'll never get it, but I'm not in any hurry to get that one. I'd certainly prefer other lenses before I got that, or other cameras. But it's there if ever I need it or wanted it. And I think Sony have done a fantastic job. It looks like it's really well made. I know it's only a G, not a GM. But for what it is and the price that they're asking, I think you can't go wrong. All right, let's go to the next story. Techart, I've noticed, have just released this adapter. This looks pretty cool. Let me just move this over because I'll just move this actually. So Techart have unveiled this. It's the world's first Sony E to Nikon Z adapter. Now, I didn't think this was going to be possible because I thought there was a patent that stopped anyone doing it. But anyway, it's a typical thing, I suppose, that the Chinese have done. They've done one. It's tiny, isn't it, though? Like, when you look at that adapter, it is really small. And it gives you AF, or you can do AF when you're doing this. I don't know how well it works. I noticed on the video, they were showing that it was doing autofocus, but it looked to me to be pretty slow. You can see that it doesn't take up much room on the adapter at all, which is fantastic because of how thin this unit actually is. But I mean, it's an option there that you can then use Sony lenses on the Nikon Z mount if you want to. I've got a feeling it's probably going to work like crap, but there's a video here that you can play, and it sort of shows it. And like I said, I'll put the links down below so that you can have a look and just see how you think it looks. And they show different lenses being used and things like that. I'm not sure how relevant it is, but it looks like it's definitely working. But you can see that it's not native sort of lens quality. And do they say, is it just working with AFS? No, it must work with, because it's saying eye detection and face detection, so it must be AFC as well, I think. But it looks a bit slow, but whether they can get better at it, it's interesting. Anyway, I suppose the point is that you can now buy the Nikon Z and use Sony lenses if you've got them. And I suppose that's the main thing that I wanted to discuss here. You know, that it's available. I didn't think it was going to be possible for a while. I knew something would come out eventually, but to have this coming out that quickly is pretty incredible. So I'm going to keep going, and then I'll just open up for chat because I don't want to be here for too long. I just wanted to mention, this is not Sony related, but I bet it's got a Sony sensor, that Hasselblad have just announced this new camera. It's an updated version of the older one. I think it's faster. When I say faster, I think it boots up faster and things like that, and it's a little bit quicker to use. But they have dropped the price drastically, I think by nearly $4,000 or something. So it's a massive difference in price. And I'd be a bit upset if I was a Hasselblad user and I bought their older camera, because that is a huge drop in prices compared to the older version. You know, I mean, huge. I suppose they've seen the writing on the wall of what Fuji have announced. So they've had to compete. The thing that I have to say, and I'm going to show the Fuji in a minute though, that this is a gorgeous design. I think Hasselblad, the camera is beautiful. I mean, it really is a gorgeous design. That's as much as it shows. But it is a really stunning looking piece of hardware. Really attractively made. Very, you know, nice rounded features. It looks lovely. I mean, it really does look lovely. And this will be one camera, I suppose, if I was going down that line if you were after more of a design aesthetic, this is a gorgeous camera. It looks lovely. I'd love to test one. I'd love to get some of these in phase 1 and also Hasselblad and see if I could test them. But they're saying it's not as cheap as the $3,999 Fuji GFX 50R, which features the same sensor. And this is a problem that Hasselblad, it mentions it there, this is the problem that Hasselblad is coming against, that, you know, that it's got the same sensor as Fuji have got, and it's dearer, but it certainly has a nicer design. But that's what I wanted to show on that, because I wanted to show you that if you compared it to, say, what Fuji got. Now, this is the GFX 100. And I mentioned this the other day. Look, you're getting 100 megapixels on this. Apparently, this is superb if you're dealing with video and also for stills. But Fuji, I don't understand what they've done here. That is the ugliest looking camera I think I've ever seen in my life. The buttons on the back are horrible. I mean, it is a terrible design. There's no... let me just see if I can grab another image because it looks awful. It really does. The buttons are tiny on the back. The design of this camera is terrible. Like, if you look at that on the back of this camera, it is seriously... Why is there no joystick on the back of this camera for the price that you're paying? You know, why is there no joystick on this area here? Like, and the buttons, they're just these little tiny little buttons that... I watched Ken, the angry photographer, the other day demoing it, and I could hear it squeaking as he was pressing the buttons, this joystick that was up here, and moving around. It was giving this horrible squeaking sound as he was moving around. He made some excuse about the bottom being a heat sink, where others have been saying it's slippery and it feels like it's going to fall out of your hand. I don't know, I just think the design is horrible. It looks like you're holding a box. I know it's not huge because if you compare it to, say, a D810, it's a little bit smaller than a D810, but the design is terrible. Now, if you don't worry about the design, I completely understand if you want it just as a workhorse. You know, it's totally understandable that you don't care about the design and the aesthetics, but I know they always bag, and I noticed Ken has always bagged Sony on the aesthetics of cameras, and yet he immediately was not mentioning anything about the aesthetics on this camera at all. And I think this is the ugliest camera I've ever seen in my life. And Fujifilm, I can't believe you could not have designed a better look and ergonomic feel to this camera. Like, it's just terrible. You know, the clunky design. Usually they have the beautiful things at the top where you can move your dials to control aperture and shutter speed. You have to double click the front and it makes this clicking sound when you're moving it. I hated it. I really hated it. You've got to buy the adapter up the top, which is separate, you know, and I don't know why they didn't build that in as an EVF that you could build in. I suppose it might be nice because you can move it up and have the camera down and hold it that way. But, you know, let me know if you think, if you agree. I just think the design, if you compare that to, you know, this beautiful Hasselblad, I know it's a little bit, it's dearer, but it is ugly. Anyway, that's all I wanted to sort of mention about that. But apart from that, the file sizes look like they're amazing. It's got phase detection on the Fujifilm. So Fuji really have kicked goals with that camera if you're dealing with technology. It's got IBIS, it's got phase detection, autofocus. So the technology side to it is brilliant. And I think Hasselblad need to wake up and they need to really fix their cameras as well and, you know, give you that sort of technology as well, because the Hasselblad now is going to be nowhere near as usable as what, say, this is. But anyway, that's about it. So let's open up to Q&A just for a few minutes and let's see what people are saying. I'm just going to show these things because it's just some people sharing some stuff. Let me go back a little bit. Tim said, I've heard lots of iffy responses to any of the Techart adapters. Will be interesting. Yeah, it will be interesting to see how that is when it gets into the real world, Tim. You know, it's going to be interesting. Mark said, Fuji forced Hasselblad. Yep, I agree. They did. Fuji are hurt. I think they will be hurting companies like Hasselblad and Phase One. That's for sure. Their marketing department now must be going, what on earth are we going to do? They're certainly going to have to look at their pricing, that's for sure, and features. You know, when you look at what the GFX 100 has in it, it's incredible. It's only a matter of time, though, before we get a 100 megapixel sensor in Sony, though. That will happen because the sensors are already there. You know, we'll get an A7R4. The next one may be 100 megapixel. It certainly will be 60 and it may be 100. Michael said, yeah, I've been thinking about getting one. Just in time. What's that, Michael? The Hasselblad or the Fuji? Studio 96 said, Richard Wong did a test with a Techart and it works impressive. Okay. The video on Sony Alpha Rumors is crap. Oh, thanks, Studio 96. Interesting. Terry put a video link up there. Not sure what that was. Jim said, oh, that's nothing. Carl said, I feel that Nikon, they have the camera that will compete with the Sony A9 and Sony will release the A9 Mark II. Yeah, I think that may be what happens. I'm certain, pretty well certain, that if Sony give the A9 sensor to Nikon, they'll produce another camera. Because Sony want to stay that one step ahead, and that's the thing. Brett said, Hasselblad dropped their price because the Fuji medium format camera. Yep. Mark said, XD Hassie, that's still around 10K with one lens. Yeah, and that's true, it is, because you remember you do have to buy the lens, so it is still 10,000. Eric said, you can't get a gig in New York unless you have a Hasselblad. Really? Is it that clicky there? That's interesting. Jim said, 53 thumbs up. Let's go for 100, please. Yes, that would be fantastic if we could do that. This is Richard Wong's test, so there's a link there if you want to watch that. Casper said Fuji is trash. Laugh out loud, angry photographer. They're not trash, Casper. They make a great camera. It's just I hate the design. That GFX 100 design sucks. It really does look horrible. Dana said hash trashing the GFX 100. I have said, Dana, though, it's an amazing camera. If you're dealing with the technology in it, it is amazing. So let me qualify it from that aspect. But the design sucks. It does suck. Let me just go back because someone just gave a donation. Sammy Photography. Thank you so much, Sammy. Where were we? Brittany said, the Fuji XTs are great compared to this. Yeah, they are. And I don't know why they went away from that, Brittany, because that's what I always love about the Fujis are the controls. And I don't understand why they've gone away from that. But it's just the buttons of that thing. You know, the buttons alone, for such a big camera, the buttons are tiny. Like, they're horrible. And this is the thing that I just don't understand why they have done that system. You know, I mean, I look at the Sony and my Sony buttons look bigger on the back of my Sony A9. And, you know, they're tiny. They look awful. They really do look awful. Steve said, Nikon have a patent for a stacked CMOS sensor. Yeah, but how would they wouldn't have the manufacturing to do it, Steve. David said, I asked because I was thinking about buying the Moza Air 2 since it's on sale for $499 and wanted it big enough for it. Yeah, I don't know. I'll just test it for you. Hang on. So let me test it. So Steve has asked if you can put the gimbal into this bag. Now, I'm not sure whether it's going to fit. Let me just have a look. I don't think it will, Steve. I don't think it's big enough. Let me just say, I'll just take the handle off. So you're going to get... Oops, what was that? Oh, that's my phone. It's going to stick out about that much, Steve. So it will fit in that front pocket, yes. But you're going to have the top part sticking out of the bag. But remember, the camera doesn't have to be on, so that's not really an issue. It will go down about that far. So yes, it will fit in. It will go in. But like I said, you're going to have it sticking out. I absolutely love this bag. I really do. It is fantastic. I've done a review of it, so if you do want to check this review out, have a look at it. But I just love the feel of this bag. It's amazing. That's what I'm going to take to the US. So Steve, yes, it will fit, but it's going to be hanging out. David said, oh, he's asked that. Oh, sorry, it was David asked, actually, not Steve. Yeah, so it probably will, David, but it's like anything. I don't think the Moza Air is going to fit in any bag that you do natively with a camera on it, because the handle doesn't come off. That's the issue with that. Having said that, it is my favourite gimbal. The Moza Air 2, I adore. That is unbelievable. The motors on that are just so good. I love using it. Yes, it's heavier, but boy, the footage and everything on that is amazing. I love the way you can control it using the wheel to slow it down and speed it up. I can't recommend it enough, David, and I paid for that, so that's something. I'm not sponsored by Moza. I paid for the Moza Air 2 and I love it. Jim put a leaf shutter info there, so there's info there if you want to check that out. What else have we got? Sammy said, a little late to the party. Well, at least you made it in, Sammy, and thank you for the donation. I'll use it to buy some cold tablets. I've lasted longer than I thought. I'm surprised. James said, how do the Fuji equivalent lenses compare in price to Hasselblad? I don't know, James, because like I said, I used to shoot Hasselblad years ago. And I haven't shot with them for a long, long time, so I'm not sure about lens prices now, how they all compare. We'd all have to look online and just see how they compare. I would think that the Hasselblad would be more expensive than Fuji, but I'm just thinking about how much Hasselblad lenses usually are. The camera system, I would think they would be dearer. But I could be wrong. Oreo said, can the Hasselblad mount the old Zeiss lenses for the film? I don't know, Oreo. That's an interesting question. Gerald said, David Oster mentioned the Facebook group and you're coming to the USA in February. Yeah, I've mentioned the Facebook group already, Gerald, earlier on. I am coming out to the US in February, guys. So I'm going to start planning some things soon because I want to do a number of meetups with you guys out there. Love to do some shooting and stuff with you and have a coffee, real coffee. With you all, so stay tuned for more info on that. And I'm coming out for basically the whole of February and a bit of early of March. I'm coming out for 4 weeks, so really excited about meeting you all. Jean says, I figured out a use for that empty space in the Fuji, can put stickers on it. I love it. Terry said, why doesn't the Fuji GFX histogram work in RGB shooting mode? Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. Why does it work when shooting JPEG only? Is that true? That's crazy. They could probably fix that with firmware though, Terry. Jim said, oh no, that's any idea if Phase 1 is catching on in the New York City fashion world? Thanks, Sammy, for the donation. Really appreciate that. Happy birthday, Kerry. Yes, it is Kerry's birthday today, so happy birthday, darling. I love you so much. Don't know whether she's watching it. She's at work. Eric said, New York City fashion agencies release a rider for photography equipment, how they only want Hasselblad. Well, that's amazing, Eric. They don't care and they don't know. They just know the name and that's all they care about. Well, I can tell you that's something similar here for Profoto. A lot of the advertising agencies here ask for Profoto in flash as well, so I know that does go on. And you're right, it doesn't mean that they know anything about it, but they know the name. Jim said, David, did you try the 1.4 teleadapter with it? No, I didn't, Jim, but I tried the 100 to 400 in a fashion portrait shoot with a girl. If you go back, you'll find it. It's actually, I can't remember the name of the girl, but she was gorgeous, high-end model. I photographed her in Dalesford here, so if you go back, you'll find that review that I did. I loved it. How did it go? I tried the adapter earlier today with my 70 to 200 images, and they weren't as sharp. Yeah, I've never used the adapters though, Jim, so I don't know because I haven't got any lenses that can use that. But someone in the live chat or down in the comment box down below may be able to answer that for you. Does the telephoto adapter make the images go soft, guys, on a 70 to 200? I'd like to know. Or Jim would. Stephen said, if you want to bag that thing, get the Magnum 650. Is that quite big, Stephen, is it? Yeah, it'll fit in, will it? Terry said, Nikon's wide and short flange allows all kind of adapters. Jim said, make sure your Facebook issue is cleared up before arriving to the USA. They might detain you otherwise. Yeah, it's meant to be fixed today around 11 o'clock. I think it was 11:45. So in about half an hour, I think, I should be able to post again, I believe. Well, there you go. Gerald said, I've gotten sharp images using the 2 times with my 70-200 2.8, no problem. I've posted numerous examples. Oh, cool. Terry said, the new Hasselblad is the same price as the old one. No, the old one was nearly $9,000, Terry. It was way more expensive. They might have dropped the price, but when you bought that new Hasselblad when it was released, it was nearly $9,000. Michael said, David, rule number 1, don't walk around Los Angeles with gear without having friends with you. The natives get restless out here when you do that. Yep, well, that's sure. I hope you're going to meet up with me, Michael. Dana said, the Fuji lenses are cheaper because of the leaf shutter and the in the Hasselblad lenses. Oh, okay. James said, I read it's not as sharp at 800 on the 100 to 400. I'm selling the GM and will pre-order the 200 to 600 and use the 1.4. Sammy said, happy birthday. That's to Kerry. Gerald said, happy birthday, Kerry. Shreyam said, should I wait for a Sony a7S III or jump into Lumix S1 for videography? Look, if you need a camera now, I mean, you might not want to wait, but I'd hang out a little bit if you're not in any hurry. I wouldn't buy the Lumix just for the autofocus alone. That puts that out for me. Look, if you totally use manual focus, it's fine to go for the Lumix. But if you're like me and you want to use autofocus, I'd wait, that's for sure. Jim said, thanks for the adapter, no worries. Sid said, the Fuji lenses are much cheaper than the Hasselblad. Okay, thanks for that. Oh my God, Silver Knight said vitamin D3. Yeah, I've got to take something. I am getting a little bit better though, because I've had this for a few days. Brett said 2 times teleconverter will make your images softer. Yeah, I've heard the 1.4 is better. What else have we got? Stephen said Magnum 650 is more suited for C100 and C200, so it'll fit the Moser Air and other gear too. Okay, so yeah, it's a much bigger backpack. The thing I love about that backpack that I've got, it's not too big. Because when I'm traveling around, I want it to be able to stick on the carry-on and not have it so big. I mean, I'm only a shorty, you know. I mean, I'm only 5'6", so I'm only quite short. So I don't want a backpack that looks like it's 3/4 of my body length. Plus, I've got to carry it around. But yeah, I suppose if you want to put it inside, you may have nothing else to do than do that. So. And there we go, we're at the end of the chat. Well, I'm surprised I got this long. I've nearly lasted a whole show, actually. We've been on for, 1 hour, 17 minutes. So we've been on for quite a while. All right, guys, I am going to go because I do want to give my voice a little bit of a rest. Thank you so much for today. Really had a great time. Any questions, leave them down below. Like I said, too, if you do want to start to think about meetups and stuff like that, Gerald too will be organising a bit because he's already over in the US, but certainly contact me if you do have things you'd like to meet up while I'm in America. Well, when I say America, I'm spending 4 weeks there, but I'm going to be in LA. We're then going to Vegas. We're then going to come back to LA, and then I'm going to go up to San Francisco. So, you know, I'd love to meet some of you on my travels with Kerry. And like I said, we're going to have some shoots around Vegas as well in LA. The part where we're going up from from Vegas to San Francisco is just going to be Kerry and myself because we want a little bit of a alone time. So that part is just us two. But the other parts where we're in Vegas and LA, I'd love to have shoots and meetups and everything with you all. It'll just be that one little week where we're traveling up north where we'll be sort of on our own. But I will have a meet up in San Francisco once we get up to there, if people are in San Francisco that want to have a meet up as well. So certainly let me know. We can have coffee. We can have a beer o'clock. Would be fantastic as well. Let me just see who's here before we go. Brittany, good work. Have a rum today. That might be nice. Brittany, that could be good. Casper, Sony. Michael's laugh out loud. Casper, loser Nikon Fuji. 0007 said, my coffee, Moose Drill from Big Sky Brewing Company in Montana. Ooh, I'm looking forward to trying some of the USA ales and things, so I'm looking forward to that. All right, guys, that's all for today. Catch you later. If I don't see you, have a great weekend, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. Bye for now.